Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton, and I'm really excited about this one. This is the deck I've been wanting to build for a very long time. It's finally time. We're building Saber with the new Heaven's Feel 2 stuff. This deck is not great, but it's fun, and I think this is the best way to get the most out of that explosive Saber top end. So the object of the deck is to get that level 3 combo down. It swings big in a single lane, which triggers multiple cancel burns, trying to close our opponent from 3-0. It's not super competitive. It can beat anything because it can close from 3-0. We've talked about this on the channel before. Stuff that can close games can win, but it can also completely miss, especially if we don't get our 2-1 combo. This deck runs 3 combos, and if we miss one of them, we can lose the game based strictly on that. So a lot of things have to come together. We have the fixing tech to make it work, but it's not consistent enough, and it will miss a little bit more often than it should if it's going to be competitive. The deck isn't terribly expensive, except for some of the older Fate cards from earlier sets that didn't get reprints. The problem is that they're really hard to get away from, especially if we're building the deck in this direction, which means that this is something that you're more likely to build if you already have most of the stuff and maybe need to pick up a couple of pieces, as opposed to trying to build the whole thing from scratch. The deck wins with a decent mid-game that gets through the deck quickly, gets cards into hand, it runs 8+ing triggers, and we have the pieces that we need to get our combos together. Our end game decompresses our opponent and burns for big damage. We have a 2-1 combo that literally pulls climaxes out of our opponent's deck, as well as some other stuff. The level 3 combo, like I said, big time cancel burns, tries to close games, and we usually have the ability to get our climaxes together for all 3 of our combos. I'm usually not one to advocate for 3 combo decks. There are just too many moving pieces to make sure you get it all together, which is one of the reasons why this deck isn't particularly competitive. However, this deck specifically has the pieces necessary to get all 3 of those climax combos together without stretching the limits of what the deck can do that much. We're going to start as always at level 0. You're going to be familiar with most of these if you've seen any of our Fate stuff, so I'm just going to get through them quickly. Start with the Shiro Encore, gives all master characters Clock Encore. It has a bad search effect for a card that we don't even run. This helps us keep field without losing hand and helps us loop our combo. Next, we play a couple copies of the Drop Search. It's a Drop Search. It gains 1500 power if we have 2 or fewer cards in stock. It gets pretty big, can play defense at level 0, and obviously Drop Searchers are useful, especially in a deck like this one where we need several specific pieces. I think I might be the only person who likes this card. It's the Battle in the Rain. Pay 1, rest 2, tap check 4, add a level 1 or higher card. This can add our level 1 event. This can add our level 1 combo. This can add the level 1 Taiga that has bad traits we'll talk about in a little bit. I like this better than the Brainstormer, even though it's not selective because it's far less likely to whiff, and it can plus us pieces that no Brainstormer can. We are going to lean into the Master trait enough that it makes it worth it to run the Elia as a 4-of on play, pitch 1, top check 4, add a Master. It makes our deck so much faster, which is something we really need because we don't really have other good compression tools. It doesn't even target half the deck in this list because we play so many Saber cards, but it's still going to hit about 90% of the time because we run just enough Master characters for it to be usable. The best Fate decks lean into the Master trait because of the Shiro Encore and this Elia. That's the primary reason I think why Saber isn't competitive, but we run enough Masters because we run that level 1 Elia combo, we run, enough stuff with the Master trait that this is useful, if only as a way for us to increase our deck speed. Last level 0 we've seen before is the Rule Breaker Caster. We play 1 of it because it's an on-play blink, deals with stuff that has cross-turn power and effects, useful against Dal or 8-bar or anything else that, has some kind of lingering effect that we want to get rid of. Warcry Berserker bonds to the level 1 on play, reveal the top card. If it's a Master or Servant, we can add it to hand and pitch a card. And then also on play, pitch 1 to salvage the level 1 combo. It filters twice, it can get the combo into our hand, we can get rid of climaxes. This is super useful in the early game, not as useful late game, but still something we want to get into our hand at level 0 because it can help us get our level 1 game together while also solving a hand that is full of climaxes. We also run copies of Style of a Night Saber. This is an older card that is almost good in some decks, but is good in this deck, mostly because it grants hexproof to our character in the middle lane, which means that the big lane that we're prepping at level 3 can't be denied by things like tap counters and money counters because it literally cannot be targeted. So massive tech piece that keeps our endgame from being completely shut down by some of the more common defensive tech in the meta. Also, we can pay 1, clock the top card of our deck to search our deck for a Shiro or Saber. This helps us get our endgame stuff, which is all Shiro and Saber, into our hand without losing a card from hand, which is really important because we need to pitch characters in order to get our combo to go off. But again, that hexproof is the most important thing that this card brings to the table. It's not master traded, which sucks, but it has just enough synergy with the other stuff to make it worth playing as a 2 of. And finally, we run a copy of Way of the Night Lancer. On play, pay 1, pitch a climax, search our deck for a green climax or a card named Excalibur. Both our level 2 and level 3 combos combo with climaxes named Excalibur. So this lets us go get that choice climax from our deck for both of those combos. It's just another way for us to guarantee that we get our climax in hand if we're short. Level 1 is mostly about the combo, but we've got a couple other nice pieces in there as well. First of all, the pants combo on the Elia. If 2 or more other Master or Servant characters are on board, this gains 1,000 power. The combo on attack. If we have 5 or less stock, we can top check 4, add a Master or Servant from those 4, and put everything else into waiting room. We can mill a lot of cards with this combo. This really helps with our compression, especially because we're likely to get to level 1 earlier because we have the Shiro Encore that can keep stuff on field while clocking us into level 1. That's a pretty common strategy with the Fate Master stuff, is to get to level 1 first, especially now that we're playing into a very standby heavy meta. This has a better chance of getting over a smaller board on turn 2 than a bigger board on turn 3. In any case, mills a lot of cards, hopefully gets us into our second deck while also adding cards out of our deck, and triggering the pants can get us our level 2 or level 3 choice combo. I like this card. Simple question, Elia. On play, pitch 1, reveal a top card, salvage a character with level equal to or lower than the revealed card. We are guaranteed a 0 off of this, and Fate has so many good zeros, so many zeros that we really need, honestly. This can get us our Encore Shiro, this can get us our Ilya Akatsuki, it can get us the Bonder for the Berserker so that we can get our level 1 game together, it can get the back row Reen so that we can top check 4, give us a little bit more mill access. It can even, if we reveal a level 1 card, get us our level 1 Taiga, which is really hard to get into hand by basically any other means because of how poorly traded it is. This is decent fixing. We're not going to win board at level 1, so we might as well lean into the tech that can help us advance our game plan, even if it's going to lose us board. This is a decent off level 1. This is one of the spiciest cards I've ever seen, and I love it. Mischievous Smile Taiga. On play, switch the top card of your opponent's stock with a card from their waiting room. Basically what this does is, right before we push our opponent into a new level, we want to try to stock one of their climaxes so that they can't get it into their next deck. If we can get this down on board with the 2-1 combo and potentially mill out our opponent the rest of the way, we can get 2 climaxes out of our opponent's final deck. That really helps us stick the cancel burns that we're trying to get with the level 3 combo. The traits are terrible. Taiga is neither a master nor a servant, but she can be added with either the back row Reen, which is really one of the main reasons we run that card, or the level 1 Ilya filter that we just talked about. We also run a copy of Illusion Magic, just a one-of. We can get this off the back row Reen. Basically, it's here as kind of an emergency deck fix kind of thing. We can also pair it with the Taiga to stock a climax and then immediately Illusion Magic so that we know that we bury it, even if we can't mill our opponent out all the way. It can also potentially decompress an opponent while fixing a bad deck state on our side of the table. I would love to find a way to squeeze a second copy in, but this deck already runs such tight margins, but we do run it as a one-of. Level 2 is basically just the level 2 combo. This combo, the 2-1 Saber with the Excalibur climax that we use for the level 3 combo as well. On attack, pay 1, pitch 1, move a card from our opponent's waiting room to their memory, and this gains 1,000 power, which means this swings in at 10,000, which is decent size when we have the climax down. This combo is wild. It's expensive. It basically prevents us from playing early play heals because this is where we're putting all of that stock. However, it decompresses our opponent so aggressively that it's worth it because of the way that the combo works at the top end. By pulling an opponent's climax basically out of the game entirely, we make it a lot easier for those cancel burns to stick, as well as vanilla damage from our other lanes. If we can get this together, it really opens up our endgame and makes it a lot easier to close. We also run one copy of this Ilya promo. It's a 3,500 power backup, a big counterpunch. There's a Saber that does basically the same thing, but this one has the master trait, which means that the Akatsuki gets another target. We're less likely to whiff with it. The only real difference is that master trait, so we run this because it gives us a little bit of additional synergy. We're not that worried about backups in this deck. We're honestly kind of resigned to the fact that we're going to lose board most of the game against anything that's big. but this does give us an option if we want a chance to keep something on board. And now finally, level 3. It's all devoted to making this very weird combo go off. Oath of the Sword Saber pairs with that same choice climax from before. On play, heal. The combo on attack, pitch 3 Master or Servant characters, and we can give a character cancel burn for 3 twice. So, if we attack with this, we choose one of our characters. We can choose this or something else in our front row. When that card's attack is canceled, we burn 3 twice. The idea is that we use this and the Shiro that we're going to talk about in just a second to bulk up one lane so it's swinging for massive damage, which will probably get canceled, but then we get the cancel burns off. That Shiro has a couple abilities that helps us. When this card is placed on stage from our hand, we can choose a card in our waiting room and put it face up underneath this card as a marker. And at the beginning of our attack phase, if there isn't a climax in our climax area, we can pay 1 to move the marker into our climax area. So it basically guarantees our combo goes off, which is really nice because we just used the Excalibur climax at level 2. This can pull that back out of our waiting room and put it into our climax area, essentially. So as long as there is an Excalibur climax in our waiting room, we can pay 1 to go get it, which is really nice. When this card attacks, if we have a full board, we can choose one of our characters, and that character gets +2 soul till the end of turn, basically buffing that one lane that we're going to give the cancel burns to make sure the cancel burns go off. And ideally, that lane will have this card in it, a Knight's Oath Saber, the old Musashi, the only good Saber card for the longest time, finally gets an opportunity to really shine. It gains 500 power for each of our other masters and servants. On the turn when this card is played, when the damage dealt by this card's attack is canceled, we can put the top card of our deck into our waiting room and deal X to our opponent. X is equal to that card's level +1. So, in a perfect world, we get the combo down, which gives this the additional cancel burns. We get the Shiro down, which gives this additional soul. This is swinging for at least 5, hopefully more if there's an open lane. Maybe we were able to use the Ilya backup to clear a lane. If we can swing for 5, 6, 7 with this, that damage will probably cancel, giving us a Musashi burn for at least 1, followed by 2 burns for 3. Hopefully a lot of that sticks because we've decompressed our opponent with the Taiga and the 2-1 combo. It is big, it is brazen, it's greedy, it's not necessarily very good, but when it pops off, it is fun. That's really what we're going for here. It's very fun to pilot this, and it feels so great to close out an opponent from 3-0 with this combo. We also run a copy of Sword Shrouded. This card was a staple in 8-bar for a while. On play, we can choose one of our opponent's characters and bounce it to their hand, and this card gains 2,000 power. We can also pay 1, pitch 1 when we attack to give everybody 500 power and a soul. Potential soul pump if we need it. More importantly, it bounces something to hand, which lets us deal with standby or some other thing that's going to destroy our board. Gives us an open lane where we can pop the Saber down. This is great if we don't get the Shiro, especially. We can use this to still give our cancel burn lane some extra soul. Strengths and weaknesses. The combo can actually close from 3-0 when it pops off, which it pops off decently often. We also have enough fixing tools in the deck to get our combos together, even all 3. And we have enough things that can get our tech pieces, like the Taiga, like the Illusion Magic. We have things that can get those into our hand. So usually we can get enough of them together to put together a coherent game. We also have a decompression engine that basically can't be turned off. You can't really stop the 2-1 combo from going off if all the pieces are on board, which is nice. It basically guarantees that if we can get it together, our opponent will be at a disadvantage when we finally get our level 3 game down. The unfortunate truth of the matter is that level 3 combo can whiff a lot. If we don't get our level 2 combo together, if our opponent is well compressed, or if we don't get all of our pieces together, we just kind of have a board full of big soul swings, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not anywhere near as good as the actual combo. And realistically, especially if you don't get the 2-1 combo off, the cancel burns don't always work. They're kind of big swings themselves. You're basically sacrificing a vanilla swing to get these extra cancel burns. So it's not inconceivable that everything goes wrong and we end up sticking very little damage and not closing the game, especially in a deck that's as aggressive as this one. Very little healing. It goes all in on its combo, and if the combo doesn't work, we basically lose. So the fact that the level 3 combo can whiff as often as it does is not a great sign. The level 1 combo is fine. It's on a plussing trigger. It only pluses us 1. It's fine. It's not bad. The additional power isn't that useful because, we're going to be playing into stuff that's way bigger than us anyway. It's mostly here for the pants trigger. It's okay. It's not great. I wish it was a little bit better. And then finally, like I said, there's no size in this. We're going to lose board the whole game. We're going to be crashing board probably way more often than we want to. This is not a good Dal matchup at all. Like I said, it's not meta. The weaknesses are significant. It's going to win games, but it's very rarely going to win tournaments. Our level 1 board looks like this. We want to get the Ilya combo down as much as possible. It is crucial that we get as much plussing as we can, and if we can get this down on turn 2 using the Shiro Encore to level us, that's usually good, because it means that we can keep board on offense with the Ilya that way, because it oftentimes will lose even to other level 1 combos. It's only swinging in at 6-5 with the combo, which, again, basically loses to standby boards. Our level 2 board looks like this, where we want the 2-1 down. Usually we want to use the Taiga either on the turn before or on this turn, depending on when we're going to push our opponent into their next deck. If we can get both of these off together, and we can basically force our opponent to refresh with no more than 6, that sets us up really well for our endgame. And our endgame board hopefully looks like this, with the Shiro to pump Soul, the Saber combo into the Saber Musashi, with the Takitsubo in the back row, to provide that hexproof that we need to keep our combo lane alive and make sure that we actually get our cancel burns that we've worked so hard to get. Of course, there are other options as well. The challenge with these options is usually stock. At level 3, we have a pair of early plays we can run, the Saber Healer and the Ilya Stock Healer, both of which are good cards, both of which we don't have the resources for in this deck if we want to run the 2-1 combo, and I really think the 2-1 is necessary to make the level 3 really pop off. If you want to run the early play heals in any kind of meaningful way, you really have to pull the 2-1 combo, which I just don't think is the play here. I don't think the level 3 combo works as effectively when swinging into a deck that hasn't been decompressed. The other notable absence from my list is the new Saber Brainstormer. I'm assuming that's an auto-include for most people building this deck. Aside from my well-established dislike for Brainstormers in general, I just don't think this Brainstormer gives us enough. It adds a little bit of power when a climax is played, which is fine, but that power isn't enough to help us beat standby boards. It's really just that little bit of extra power that can help us beat over, more normal level 1 boards, which is fine, but I would rather have something in my back row, in the back row Reen, the rest to pay 1, top check 4, as opposed to this, which is, again, gonna whiff a lot because it's a Brainstormer, especially in the modern meta. Trading a stock for literally nothing a quarter of the time just feels terrible, especially when you have this Reen that could potentially turn that one into a card of some kind. You don't need to use something as rote as a Brainstormer that has such a high whiff chance, especially early in the game. And then finally, there are other cards you can play that have the Excalibur name. If you don't want to run Choice, there are a couple other options, the most interesting of which is probably the Excalibur Morgan Salvage, which by rule has the same name as Excalibur and can be run with this. Personally, I like the Choice best. I think it is the best trigger in the game that isn't standby, and in a deck that basically doesn't run red, you can't really play the Salvage out of hand if you have it. The Choice just makes the most sense here. There are a couple other things you can play, but I don't really see any reason why you would play anything other than the Choice in this list. And so here is the list. Like I said, it's less expensive than some of the other Heaven's Feel stuff, but it's still not cheap, mostly because of the Shiro Encores and those Drop Searchers. The Heaven's Feel 2 stuff isn't bad. The new Saber stuff isn't bad. Like, if you wanted to run Saber Waifu, that actually wouldn't be super expensive aside from the Drop Search. But it is what it is. If you already have a bunch of Fate stuff and you want to build something with the Saber top end, I think this is the best way to play that top end, but if you're trying to build this out of whole cloth, it's going to be a pretty expensive buy-in just because it's so hard to find and purchase those Encores and those Drop Searchers. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much for being here for this. In my last deck tech, I asked people if they wanted to see what I think is the optimal Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel 2 deck for the modern meta, which is Pants Salvage. And more of you than I expected said that you wanted to see that. So my next deck tech is going to be Pants Salvage. I think that's going to be fun. In the meantime, we'll have gameplay on Thursday, new Clock Talk on Tuesday, and new 5 cards 5 minutes a week from Thursday. Until next time, thank you again. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.